Hi, I'm Sienna, 25, ambitious, and fiercely independent. After 3 years of double shifts at the diner and freelance graphic design on weekends, I finally saved enough to buy my dream car, a used but well-maintained Mazda MX-5 Miata. Sure, it wasn't brand new, but it was mine, paid in full without a dime of debt. That car is completely impractical, my mother would say during our weekly Sunday dinners, her voice carrying that distinctive nasal quality it always had when she disapproved of something. What happens when you need to drive more than one person? Then I don't drive, Mom, I'd reply, spooning more mashed potatoes onto my plate. That's what Uber is for. My father would grunt from behind his newspaper. Waste of money if you ask me. Could have put a down payment on a house. My sister Amber, perpetually running late, burst through the door at that moment. Sorry. Traffic was insane. She tossed her designer bag onto the counter, a bag that probably cost more than my monthly rent. No problem, sweetie, Mom cooed. We were just discussing Sienna's little sports car. Amber rolled her eyes dramatically. Still talking about that thing? I'd rather have student loan debt than drive that midlife crisis mobile. Speaking of student loans, Dad said, folding his newspaper with unusual precision. That's actually something we need to discuss. Mom nodded solemnly. As a family. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Dad cleared his throat, a habit that preceded every serious conversation. Amber's grace period on her loans ends next month. The payments are substantial. 45,000, Amber interjected with a shrug. It's not my fault college is so expensive. I nearly choked on my water. 45,000? I thought you had scholarships? I did, but books are expensive, and I had to live somewhere nice. And there were sorority fees. Dad continued as if I hadn't spoken. We've been looking at our options, and we need to make some difficult decisions as a family. What does this have to do with me? I asked, though something in my stomach was already tightening. Mom reached across the table for my hand. Sienna, honey, you're the only one in this family with an asset that could be liquidated quickly. I pulled my hand away. What are you saying? Your car, Dad said flatly. If you sell it, we could put a significant dent in Amber's loans. You can't be serious. I looked from face to face, waiting for someone to crack a smile. It's just a car, Sienna, Amber said, examining her manicure. Don't be so dramatic. Just a car? I worked 3 years to save for it. Dad's voice hardened. And Amber worked 4 years for her degree. This is about priorities. Your sister needs to start her life debt-free, Mom added. That's more important than, what did you call it, Amber? Midlife crisis mobile, Amber smirked. I stood up so quickly my chair tipped backward. You want me to sell my car, that I paid for myself, to cover her loans? Loans she took out? For a degree she chose? We're not asking, Sienna, Dad said, his tone frighteningly calm. We're telling you what's going to happen. The family needs this. They want me to sell my Miata to pay off Amber's student loans, I told Margot over the phone the next morning, my voice still trembling with rage. They what? Margot's voice rose an octave. Please tell me you're joking. I wish I was. They ambushed me at dinner last night. That's insane. What did you say? I left. Just walked out and drove home. Good, because that's completely out of line. My dad called this morning saying I need to stop being selfish and think about the family. Sienna, Margot's voice turned deadly serious. This isn't about family. This is about them enabling Amber again, at your expense. The following day, I met with Margot and her boyfriend, Derek, who worked as a financial advisor at a coffee shop downtown. Let me get this straight, Derek said, stirring his latte methodically. Your parents expect you to sell your paid-off car to cover your sister's student loans? That's the short version, I confirmed. And they just told you this was happening? No discussion? Margot asked. Pretty much. Dad said, and I quote, We're not asking, we're telling you what's going to happen. Derek whistled. That's not how family financial decisions work. At all. Do they even have legal right to make you do this? Margot asked. Absolutely not, Derek replied before I could. Sienna, the car is in your name, right? You paid for it yourself? Every penny. I have all the documentation. Then legally they can't touch it. But I'm worried about something else. Have you co-signed any loans with your family? Joint bank accounts? Anything like that? I shook my head. No, I've always kept my finances separate. Smart, Derek nodded. Because my next question was going to be about your sister's spending habits. I pulled out my phone. Actually, Amber's been posting about her college experience for years. Check this out. I scrolled through her Instagram. Spring break in Cancun, weekend trips to Vegas, designer clothes, expensive restaurants. Holy crap, Margot muttered. Did she use student loan money for all this? Later that week, I met with my cousin Jordan, who worked in the financial aid office at the same university Amber had attended. I can't give you specific details about Amber's account, Jordan explained, fidgeting with her glasses. That would be illegal, but hypothetically, if someone were taking out maximum loans when they had scholarships covering tuition and then using that money for luxury purchases, that could potentially be problematic. On my way home, I called my Uncle Tony, a lawyer who specialized in family law. After explaining the situation, I asked, "Can they legally force me to sell my car?" "Absolutely not," Uncle Tony's gruff voice came through the speaker. "You're an adult. The car is your property. End of story." What if they try to take it anyway? Then it's theft, pure and simple. But Sienna, this sounds like more than a legal issue. This is about standing up for yourself. The following Sunday, I arrived at my parents' house early, purposely leaving my Miata parked prominently in the driveway. Inside, I found my parents and Amber already seated at the dining table. "Sienna," Mom said, her voice artificially bright. "I'm glad you came. We were worried after you stormed out last week." "I didn't storm out," I replied calmly. "I removed myself from a toxic situation. But I'm back because we need to talk." Dad put down his fork. "If you've come to apologize—" "I haven't," I interrupted. "Actually, I've invited some people to join us." On cue, the doorbell rang. I opened the door to reveal Margot, Derek, Jordan, and Uncle Tony. "What is this?" Dad demanded as they filed in. "We're having a family dinner." "Yes, we are," I agreed. "And since this family seems determined to make decisions about my property, I thought it would be helpful to have some objective perspectives." "This is ridiculous," Amber spat. "You're making a scene over a stupid car." "Am I?" I pulled out a folder and placed it on the table. "Because I've been doing some research." "Let's start with Amber's student loans," I said, pulling out the first document. $45,000 is a lot of money, especially considering you had a partial scholarship, right, Amber? Amber shifted uncomfortably. "So what?" "So I was curious where all that money went." I spread out printed screenshots from her social media. "Spring break in Cancun, designer clothes, weekend trips to Vegas." "You're spying on me?" Amber's voice rose. "It's not spying when you posted it all publicly," Jordan pointed out. "Who even are you?" Mom snapped at Jordan. "I'm her cousin who works in university financial aid," Jordan replied calmly. "And while I can't discuss specific cases, I can say that using student loan money for luxury purchases violates the terms of most loan agreements." "This is none of your business," Dad growled. "It became my business when you demanded I sell my car to pay for it," I replied. "We're your parents," Mom insisted. "We're just trying to help your sister start her life debt-free. By destroying mine? By taking something I worked hard for?" I shook my head. "That's not help. That's favoritism. You've always been jealous of your sister," Dad accused. "No," I countered. "I've always been held to a different standard than her. I had to work through college. I had to save for my car. I had to be responsible. But Amber? Amber gets to spend loan money on vacations, and when the bill comes due, you expect me to pay it?" "That's it." Dad slammed his fist on the table. "Either you sell that car and help your sister, or you're no longer welcome in this house. I'm giving you 1 week to decide." "I don't need a week," I replied calmly. "I've already decided, and so have you." 2 weeks later, I sat in a conference room at Uncle Tony's law office with my parents, Amber, and a mediator. The atmosphere was tense, the table between us feeling miles wide. "Thank you all for agreeing to this mediation," the mediator, Miss Patel, began. "I understand there's been a significant family dispute regarding financial matters." "There's been a misunderstanding," Mom attempted, her smile strained. "We were just trying to help both our daughters." "By demanding one sell her property to pay for the other's loans?" Miss Patel asked, eyebrow raised. "That seems less like help and more like redistribution." "We're her parents," Dad insisted. "We were looking out for the whole family." "Mr. and Mrs. Garrett," Uncle Tony interjected. "Your daughter is 25 years old. Her car is legally her property. Your demands, followed by threats of disownment, constitute financial coercion." "We never threatened," Dad began. "You said, and I quote," I interrupted, "either you sell that car and help your sister, or you're no longer welcome in this house." Amber, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke. "I didn't ask them to make you sell your car, Sienna." "But you didn't stop them either," I pointed out. "And you were happy to benefit from it." "I've reviewed the documents provided," Miss Patel continued, "including the evidence of potential student loan misuse. Miss Garrett, Amber, are you aware that using student loan funds for non-educational expenses violates federal regulations?" Amber paled. "It was just a few trips." "Social media evidence suggests otherwise," Miss Patel replied. "I strongly recommend you consult with a financial advisor about proper loan repayment strategies before this escalates further." "Are you threatening my daughter?" Dad demanded. "No, Mr. Garrett. I'm warning her of potential consequences of her actions. Just as I'm warning you and your wife that any further attempts to coerce Sienna could result in legal action." Mom burst into tears. "This isn't how families should treat each other." "I agree," I said quietly. "Families shouldn't demand sacrifices from one member to cover another's mistakes." 3 months later, I met Margot for coffee. "So?" she asked, sliding into the seat across from me. "How did lunch with your mom go?" "Better than expected," I admitted. "She actually apologized, like a real apology, not one of those 'I'm sorry you feel that way' non-apologies." "Progress," Margot grinned. "And your dad?" "Still stubborn, but he called yesterday. Didn't apologize, but asked how I was doing. It's something." "And Amber?" I couldn't help but smile slightly. "Working 2 jobs to make her loan payments. She's mad about it, but she's doing it." "Wow. Actual consequences. Novel concept." I laughed, then grew serious. "I never wanted to tear my family apart." "You didn't." Margot reached for my hand. "You just refused to be torn apart yourself." "So what's next for you?" she asked. "I'm thinking of starting my own graphic design business, using my savings as startup capital." "Not selling anything to fund it?" Margot teased. "Not a chance," I replied. "Some things aren't for sale, self-respect being at the top of that list." Outside, the sun glinted off my Miata's polished hood. It wasn't just a car anymore, it was a symbol of boundaries drawn and respected, of standing my ground, of valuing myself even when others wouldn't. Have you ever had to choose between peace and respect? Between family expectations and your own boundaries? What would you have done in my position? Like, comment, and subscribe for more stories about setting boundaries and standing your ground.